Verdicts are in the murder trial of Robert Brooks. The three defendants, Nicholas Kieffer, David Kingsley, and Matthew Galliher, a verdict came down. David Kingsley was the only one out of all three of these former prison guards that were found guilty of murder and manslaughter. Nicholas Kieffer, not guilty on all charges. Matthew Galliher, not guilty. I don't know how this is possible. I can't even believe that I'm saying this.
I respect the jury's verdict. Obviously, the two gentlemen were acquitted. I felt differently, but I respect the jury's verdict. And now we'll see what the United States jury does with them.
You described the three of them as defendants as part of a violent gang, a welcoming committee. And now to see two of them acquitted, one of them, David Kingsley, who was convicted on both of those counts.
Right. We went into this case with the idea immediately that four people had to be held accountable for Robert's death. All four of them will now be serving lengthy prison sentences. That's Mr. Farina, Mr. Kingsley, Mr. Manslaughter, and Mr. Wallace.
I am mad as hell, and I can only imagine how the Brooks family feels. You'll hear them gasp when the not guilty verdicts are read for Nicholas Kieffer and Matthew Galliher. You know, they were charged with gang assault as well, and a statement, a false instrument. They covered up the murder, tried to cover up the murder of Robert Brooks by filing false reports. How are they not found guilty of that? I don't know. I am angry, and let's listen. Let's listen in together.
When the jury agreed upon murder in the case of people of the state against David Kingsley, as the count one, murder in the second degree, what is the jury's verdict? As the count two, manslaughter in the first degree, what is the jury's verdict? Members of the jury, the foreperson has announced the following verdict. Count one, murder in the second degree, guilty. Count two, manslaughter in the first degree, guilty. Members of the jury are those reversed. Ms. Foreperson, has the jury agreed upon verdict in the case of the people of the state of New York against Matthew Galliher? As the count one, murder in the second degree, what is the jury's verdict? Not guilty. As the count two, manslaughter in the first degree, what is the jury's verdict? Not guilty. As the count three, obtaining assault in the second degree, what is the jury's verdict? Not guilty. Members of the jury are those reversed. As to count one, murder in the second degree, what is the jury's verdict? Not guilty. As to count two, manslaughter in the first degree, what is the jury's verdict? Not guilty. As to count three, gain assault in the second degree, what is the jury's verdict? Not guilty. As to count four, offering assault and permit for filing in the first degree, what is the jury's verdict?
Now, folks, you can hear people gasping in the courtroom. That's Robert Brooks's family and friends.
We're hearing from the victim's son.
Robert Brooks Jr. spoke after an End Prison Violence rally in Albany. Brooks and many others today called on Governor Hochul to sign a package of prison reform bills after his father was beaten to death last December. Brooks says he hasn't spoken to the governor, but would like to sit down with her and have a discussion about what's best for incarcerated individuals and how to make corrections officers feel safe so that they can better do their jobs. Brooks says he has a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions since the verdict was read.
I feel possible that change can happen, yes. Even though we got one that guilty on all charges and two acquitted, I feel as in the people that were acquitted, they were doing what their supervisors told them to do. And so I can't be totally mad at them. but I'm more mad at the system that allows that to go on.
Call it as it is. Robert Brooks was murdered by these former correction officers. And I hate it when they say, oh, but the death of Robert Brooks. No, the murder of Robert Brooks. Get it right.
Yesterday in Utica, New York, one state prison guard was convicted of murder and 2 were acquitted for killing Robert Brooks at the Marcy Correctional Facility last December 9th, 2024. I'm JB Nicholas, and I'm a journalist who covered the trial. I want to talk about the irregularities that I saw throughout this trial. Was the defense lawyers were allowed to make a number of arguments that were based on evidence that was not in the record or didn't exist at all. And some of them can fairly be characterized as straight up lies and disinformation that the defense lawyers, the lawyers for Kieffer, Kingsley, and Galliher were allowed to spew to the jury without objection from the prosecution and without correction from the trial judge. So I'll give you an example. David Longaretta, the lawyer for Nicholas Kieffer, argued that when Farina stuffed a rag down Brooks's throat while he was torturing him before he killed him, Longaretta argued to the jury that he was just wiping Brooks's face with the rag. In Brooks's case, Judge Bauer allowed these attorneys to make these false arguments without any basis in the record. When the jurors come out of the courtroom, come out of the courthouse after the verdict, the press typically asks them questions. There's a custom. The press can approach jurors. In New York City, they come out of the DA's office and walk to the subway. They don't have an escort or anything. Now, in Oneida County, they had an escort to the parking lot from court officers. So right away, journalists are at a disadvantage because jurors are reluctant to talk in front of the police. The first group of jurors came out, about 9 of them, and I approached them and I said, hey, I'm a journalist. The public is interested in how you reached your verdict. Can you explain it? And everyone just sort of looked down at their feet. You know, I've covered so many trials. I've never encountered hostility from a jury quite like this before. And so it raises a lot of flags. The remainder of the jurors came out, a smaller group, 5 or 6 of them, also under escort. And again, jurors were hostile. Not only would they decline to talk, they were outright hostile. One reporter from the New York Times asked a journalist if he was happy with the verdict, and his answer was, what the fuck do you think? We deliberated it.
So David Kingsley is the only one that was found guilty of murder in the 2nd degree and 1st degree manslaughter. The other 2 defendants, and again, remember, all the other correctional officers took a plea to a sentence of 22 years. They're probably saying we should have tried to fight this, but the reason they didn't fight it is because they were the ones that were beating Robert Brooks to death on video, and they knew through the advice of their attorneys that there was no way to defend that.
The 2 gentlemen that were acquitted, lesser charges, they felt that they were not going to plead to anything. And at this point, they've been successful. I have 0 regrets about the prosecution's case. There's a single thing I could have presented to that jury to make them, to make it more clear about the involvement of the 2 defendants. They disagreed, and that's I have 0 criticism of the jury's verdict.
Will you appeal?
I would love to, but since 1783, we have been unable to appeal a acquittal. But it's not the end for Mr. Galliher and Mr. Anzalone, and I don't mean to throw gas on the fire, but the United States Attorney for the Western District is investigating this case, and they will proceed.